In a few minutes here, or a few seconds here, if everyone just can settle in. Oh, are we good for the recording? Should we be good? Yeah. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle Pedicini. I'm Assistant Director of Planning and Development for the town of Barnstable. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight for our second Open Space and Recreation Plan public meeting to solicit input from our residents. First off, I'd like to introduce Natalia, who's here to offer interpretation services for anybody who is in need of those.
Okay, good evening. My name is Natália. I'll be offering interpreter services in Portuguese and Spanish. Boa noite, meu nome é Natália Frois. Eu vou estar oferecendo serviço de interpretação em português e espanhol no fundo da sala. Buenas noches, meu nome é Natália Frois. Eu vou estar oferecendo interpretação em espanhol e português no fundo da sala. Gracias.
Thank you, Natalia. So just to give a brief overview of what we're here for tonight, basically we're just going to give a kind of brief presentation to set the stage, describing what is the Open Space and Recreation Plan, what the purpose of it is, how we've gotten to this point in the process. But really what we're here for tonight is to hear from the public. We have an open mic for anyone to come up, ask any questions or give any comments. We also have hard copies of the draft action plan over there on that table, as well as sheets. If anybody would like to submit written comments, they may do so. So what is an open space and recreation plan? It's exactly as it sounds. It identifies goals, challenges, opportunities, and priorities for open space protection, land management, and recreational opportunities in the town of Barnstable. It's going to be a blueprint for the town's plans, investments, policies, regulations in support of protecting and enhancing open space and recreational resources. It's being developed to comply with guidance from the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services, who ultimately approve of these plans at the state level. So this project has had a lot of local stakeholders involved, which is very important to make sure we're hearing from as many people as possible. The overall committee that's shepherding the process is the Open Space Committee, which many members are here tonight. I'd like to publicly thank them. They've been a great partner with town staff through the whole process and have really diligently dug into the drafts. And I think we're all pretty proud of the draft that we've developed to date. That's why we're here to share it with the public. We've also been getting input from the Recreation Commission. We've been soliciting input from conservation, various stakeholders. I also want to give a shout out to the Community Preservation Committee. See Chair Lindsay Council's here today. They actually provided funding for this update so we could hire a consultant to make sure that we complied with all the state regulations. So why is it important to update the Open Space and Recreation Plan? First off, it's important just to stay informed of our current issues and opportunities as expressed by the public. Our last plan was updated in 2018, so a lot has changed since then. It's time to update it and listen to our constituents. And very importantly, an approved plan is necessary to maintain the town's eligibility for state funding through the Division of Conservation Services. So having an approved plan allows us to have opportunities to get state grant funding for various open space and recreation initiatives. So with that, I'm going to introduce our consultants. We have Aksa and Adam here today from the BSC Group, who have been great to work with. And Aksa will go over basically the process we've gone through to date and some of the goals that have been developed.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As Kyle mentioned, I am with BSC Group. I am their senior planner. And today with me, we also have Adam Duchesneau, who is back there. We are the consultant firm that has been working with the town of Barnstable to update the open space and recreation plan. Oh. Did I shut it off?
Yeah. I don't know.
Nope, there you go. all right. Thank you. So I'm going to go over the process. So there are different elements that are required by the Massachusetts Open Space and Recreational Workbook to be eligible for state grants. And that includes updating the community setting and environmental inventory, existing conditions, open space inventory, as well as gathering feedback from the public. So as part of that process, BSC Group started with GIS mapping, where we mapped environmental conditions. So that looked at water resources, open space lands. It looked at natural resources that should be protected, climate change inventory, so looking at hotspots, as well as parcels that should be protected because of their high resiliency. Paired with that, we looked at site visits. So we went and inventoried any parcels that are managed by the town's recreation division or the conservation division to make sure that the conditions were good and to assess public accessibility as well as any needs. So that could include ADA accessibility, or it could include climate resiliency measures to basically develop actions for the action plan. We also gathered input from the public, so that included an online survey, that included an open house where we gave everyone an opportunity to vote on different elements they would like to see in different parcels that are owned by the town, as well as stakeholder interviews, which had 3 different groups. We had a recreation focus, and then a conservation focus, and a water resource focus to gather more input related to open space in those categories. So in the draft open space and recreation plan, you can find that online. It's open for comments through November 26th, and in that you will see a section for community setting, an environmental inventory and analysis section, conservation and recreational land inventories. So that includes 3 different types of inventories. There's parcels, open space parcels that are owned by the recreation division and the conservation division. There are parcels that are owned by the municipality but not managed by the Conservation or Recreation Division. And the third inventory is private parcels that are publicly accessible or are protected. So those 3 conservation and recreational inventories have existing conditions, recreational potential, public accessibility, all assessed as part of the open space and recreation plan. And then we have a section on analysis of needs. Those are needs that the town has in terms of meeting either recreation requirements or conservation requirements that we have assessed through either the public engagement process, our site visits, through our GIS inventory and mapping, or looking at the SCORP, which is the statewide open space and recreation plan to meet more regional goals. And then finally, we have the action plan. That is a 10-year action plan that looks at different objectives the town has to meet open space and recreational needs. And that includes potential funding resources and a timeline to implement goals, as well as entities that would help manage those actions. And you will see a copy of that on the front if you want to look at any of the actions. And there's also a sheet where you can provide comments for each of those actions as well. So you will see in this action plan that we have objectives, the level of priority, a responsible party, a potential funding source, and a time frame. And it's a framework to guide Barnstable's efforts to protect and enhance natural, cultural, and recreational resources over the coming decade. Next, we just have examples from each category. So we had 5 different categories in the 10-year action plan. The first one's open space and wildlife habitat. So here's an example goal. Protect and maintain the maximum feasible amount of open space to enhance environmental quality, expand recreational opportunities, and preserve community character. And as an example, we have 2 objectives highlighted. The first one is to create a database for properties in Barnstable with conservation restrictions and promote the state's Article 97 natural resources site evaluation map application. And the second one is to develop a policy for the town to exercise the right of first refusal for acquisition of land under Chapter 61, 61A, or 61B that is intended to be converted to non-chapter use. And you will see each of these have a priority level, a responsible party, or multiple parties, potential funding sources, and a time frame. I'll keep that up for a minute so everyone can look at it, but it's also included in the packet that highlights all the actions for that goal. Yes.
I'm Betty Ludke from the Village of Hyannis. That second one there, the Chapter 61, develop a policy, would that have some history from the cranberry bog in Centerville that we've had some discussion about? Why did you include develop a policy? So we've never had a policy on that? I think, maybe Kyle, you know what I'm talking about? There was a cranberry bog that did not go through this process, and it went into a private sale without any kind of process.
Yep,
Could you
so-
speak to that? Because I think it's really important.
Yep. So the Open Space Committee kind of identified that as an issue that we wanted to be addressed. So short answer to your question is yes. That kind of is what prompted the discussion. And it's something the Open Space Committee has been talking about even before the Open Space and Recreation Plan update. So they felt it was they felt strongly that it should be included in the action plan. So that's why it's there.
Thank you. Any other questions related to any of the objectives that are on the slide or in your packet? Yeah, go please.
I was just looking at, I'm Lindsay Council, by the way, looking at the executive summary, and it starts off with the notion that the purpose of the plan is to keep the town eligible for grants, which is correct. But that's by far the most important thing. The real purpose of this document is to help to guide the various groups like the Community Preservation Committee, the Open Space Committee, and the Town Council to guide them and advise them through this plan as to what's appropriate for preservation and what's not. So I think that could be tweaked a little bit
Okay.
to be more reflective of the real purpose of the plan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Yep. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. So the next group is recreational facilities and amenities. And the goal that we have highlighted on the slide is to provide diverse recreational opportunities and equitable access throughout Barnstable to meet current and future needs for all user groups. And the two objectives that are highlighted are develop a playground plan for the town that includes all 7 villages. This plan should document existing conditions and needs for each village and include a list of potential projects to increase and or upgrade playgrounds. And the second one is to create new loop walking trails around Barnstable Adult Community Center and to provide outdoor recreational opportunities for seniors. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'll speak again, particularly in Hyannis. I see this for all the villages, but largely in Hyannis, they seem to think that the school playgrounds would suffice, because that's what Hyannis has had, with the exception of Veterans Beach. And of course, to go to Veterans Beach, you have to pay money and get a beach sticker to get in there and park with your kids most of the time. So I think it's really important for this that we really look at Hyannis, and in particular Main Street, which has absolutely, it did used to have, but has no activities for children. Mm-hmm. And the HYCC is fairly close, but it would be really nice if in this study we looked at something that would be available, you know, closer into Main Street and not just in the schools. So I applaud this and hope that we move beyond that in Hyannis.
Yeah, absolutely. And the plan does address Hyannis as a high priority area for new parks. We've looked at models that assess park equity, but also in-person feedback from the public engagement process has both highlighted the need for playgrounds in Hyannis. So that is something that's in the action plan and highlighted in the recreational needs as well. Any other comments for this? Oh, hi.
Hi, my name is Patty Erickson Taylor. I'm on the Barnstable Disability Commission. And my question is the accessibility for these walks, are they accessible for all people? And like especially at Veterans Beach, I went to Veterans Beach the other day on my scooter, and I couldn't get up a sidewalk because there was no curb cut. So are these going to be addressed? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We did look at the ADA inventory, and any of the recommendations for the ADA inventory that included all the beach facilities were in the action plan as well. So yes, we have included them as along with potential funding resources to address inaccessibilities at the beaches.
Thank you.
Potential funding sources?
Yeah, so it highlights different sources that the town can pursue to be able to implement more accessibility at these locations.
We're 35 years into the ADA. Just as a reminder, you'll hear this from me every single time we come to things. So to hear potential funding sources, next year will be 36 years. So Barnstable really needs to prioritize this. And as much as Patty and I can push this, I'm her spouse, we will continue to be thorns in the side of the town of Barnstable in a productive, hopefully progressive way.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kim McGuire, and I want to thank everyone, and especially the Open Space Committee, of which I know a number of you people here, for the work that you've done so far. I'm going to make a couple comments, but this one is quick. I'm a member of the Greater Hyannis Civic Association, and I'm co-president of Save Twin Brooks, and our mission now is to preserve the Stewart's Creek estuary. As I look quickly through your plan, I think you have put Hyannis under the bus, and I'm extremely concerned about that, and I really encourage you folks to take another look at what you're proposing and the current state of Hyannis, and look at more proactive open space and recreational areas in the village, although it looks like a city, of Hyannis. And I also want to reference page 19 and the Town of Barnstable Environmental Justice Map. And if you look at that, you'll look at a very large environmental justice community, particularly around West Main Street and the area of the West End Rotary, north of that. And that is the area where we need to look at putting in playgrounds for the dense community there and the people who need to have access to that. A grandmother informed us that she takes care of her grandkids, but where can she take them during the day? We need a walkable playground in that area that isn't just connected to a school. I just want to say thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, we have highlighted a need for playgrounds and more open space and environmental justice areas in Barnstable. Hi.
Thank you very much, Chris Clark in West Barnstable. And I've had an opportunity, and I should have mentioned this sooner, but and I realize this is aspirational, but I would encourage open space acquisition in Hyannis, as was just mentioned, but particularly to support our working waterfront as it relates to Bismore Park and that area there. If there is an opportunity that arises for acquisition, that we could present it, or the town could consider it on behalf of the public for open space. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a note, we do have someone taking notes with all those comments as well. My colleague is taking notes. Any other questions related to the slide? Yep, thank you.
Hi, a couple questions. One is, when this is submitted to the state, could you discuss the timetable? Approximately when does it get accepted, and when the towns know that their plan has been accepted? And after it gets accepted, I see you have high, medium, and low priorities. I assume you start at the high priorities. Does the Open Space Committee go to the town council with these issues, or how does the process work once it gets accepted, and whether it be trails or recreational aspects? Who starts this? Does the Open Space Committee going to the town council, or could you just discuss this process?
Sure, I can address the first piece, and then Kyle, I'll let you jump in. So for the DCS process, we submitted to the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Services. They look over all of the plans to make sure that they meet compliance with the open space workbook. They approve it. It usually takes a couple months, and then once it's approved, the town publishes the draft that's been accepted onto their municipal website, and that includes the maps and as well as the action plan that's been approved. And then I'll let Kyle address the second piece.
So in terms of implementation, it's ultimately up to the town council. It's a lot like the local comprehensive plan. This is meant as a guidebook for the town council to look at and prioritize future projects. The Open Space Committee has discussed the idea of doing an annual review, of reviewing the goals and then making a report to town council saying, these are the ones we've made progress on, these are the ones we haven't. But it will ultimately be up to the town council to drive the boat and implement.
Thank you. Any other comments related to the slide on the screen?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Heather from Osterville, and I just want to echo what Karen Kim McGuire had to say. We often hear from public officials that everyone wants to put everything in Hyannis, and I think that's actually untrue. I think people who live in other villages are very sympathetic to the overdevelopment that's happening here and really would support the focusing of resources for open space and recreation for people who live in Hyannis. And I'd love for the report to reflect that.
Thank you. Hi.
Sorry, just one more thing on this slide. And maybe you're doing project-based here with the loops around the adult community center. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone who's a senior goes to the adult community center. I mean, a subset do. But is this speaking to a specific project to use that town land around the senior center? Because I'm very sympathetic to the comment about ADA compliance. And perhaps we ought to be more aspirational, as Chris Clark said, and have trails that are more friendly, perhaps to seniors or those with less mobility than others, not just at the adult community center. And then maybe if you could answer, I heard the other day a statistic, we're very close to approaching 50,000 in our population, and someone said if we go over 50, it forces ADA compliance in all of our facilities. Have you heard that at all or anything like that?
I haven't. I wouldn't be really the person to speak to that. To your question about where it came from on specifically the Barnstable Adult Community Center, that is something that the town has looked at in the past. I know Chris Canella, the Community Services Director, it's something that he's wanted to work on with the Adult Community Center. I would also say that goal is kind of trying to add some specificity to some of these goals so they're not just kind of pie in the sky. We actually have some objectivity about whether or not these goals are accomplished, once we go through the review. That's not to say that we wouldn't look at other possible sites. It's just trying to give a site specific so to direct a potential project to it. But it is something that the town has looked at in the past.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we're going to move to the next goal, and that's related to water resources. And the goal is to coordinate open space protection efforts with initiatives to protect freshwater and marine wetlands and surface waters. And the two objectives that are highlighted here are protect town-owned land surrounding Joshua's Pond and Micah's Pond in Osterville with a permanent conservation restriction and enhance existing trails, and to create new pathways on watershed land to increase natural surveillance by responsible public users. Hi.
Hi, Tara Lewis, Centerville. I just would like a clarification on that objective you just said, create new pathways on watershed land. I don't understand what that is saying.
So the idea there is to address, sometimes there's basically, I don't know how to put it, activities going on in water lands that, shouldn't be. So the idea is to bring more responsible users, that create trails that bring more eyes to the area to basically deter those kind of activities. I know that's something the Open Space Committee feels strongly about, has talked about for many years. If you guys want to expand upon that, feel free. But basically the idea is to encourage responsible users to discourage the irresponsible users.
Might as well chime in here because Kyle's correct. We've been talking about this idea for quite a while. My name's Lev Malikoff. I'm the chair of the Open Space Committee. And I've had a lot of observations of my own out on our various open space parcels, finding old campsites, dump sites, people doing things that really aren't authorized. And I've noticed that when you actually have people who are responsible, such as many of the people here out walking in the woods, they become the eyes really to let the authorities know if there is something going on that shouldn't be going on. So we've seen examples in a lot of other towns on the Cape and watershed areas, and I've seen trails all the way up to the well house buildings in Yarmouth and Harwich. They don't seem to have a problem with it, but all the people out there that are using the trails really, I think, can help discourage those activities that really don't belong out in the woods.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Sharon Diggs Harrison, and I live around Micah's Pond. And I'm glad to see that it's a priority. I'm sad to see that it's a low priority. And I'm concerned about what that means, low priority until when. So my family has had a home. I live in it now for 60 years or thereabouts. And the house abutted the ancient way or the fire lane that was obliviated when Meager put his 5-bay garage on it, okay? So which means that there is a path above my property and there's a path across the street, okay, but not behind mine. So I'm looking to have this path restored because that would mean that you can go from Bumps River Road all the way through my neighborhood up into the center of town. Okay, so this idea of it being low is concerning to me, not because it's my property, but it's because we are talking about this space that was there once upon a time, that was obliviated and is not being addressed. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Hi.
I'm back. Kim McGuire. On the left-hand side, the second objective, create new pathways on watershed land to increase natural surveillance by responsible public users. Does that include estuaries?
So I think the intention of the goal is specifically lands owned by, the water districts, but it could if that's something that the public feels strongly about.
Okay.
That's what we're here to listen to.
Good, great. Because, what's getting a lot of press these days is what's going on with the dewatering of the Hyannis Creek because of building around Pleasant Hill Lane in Hyannis. And something that we need to be aware of if we really are talking about protecting open space and having it accessible to people, the proposed development on Pleasant Hill Lane is surrounded in a number of places by conservation land. So that is land that could be acquired somehow, some way, by open space, as open space. And unfortunately, with the dewatering, to put in a development at Stevens Street and North Street, it took the water away from Hyannis Creek, and you watch town council meetings, you'll see that. So I think we need to be aware of what's going on with our water. And if development in certain areas is going to take the water away that we're trying to protect, and there's an opportunity for us to look around and say, should this particular piece be open space? I think we need to be aware of that. And when I said you put the Hyannis under the bus, we all put Hyannis under the bus. I'm not calling people out, but unfortunately, we really need to focus on this now, because if we don't make changes now and do the right thing, it's going to be too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds good. The next category is connectivity and accessibility, and the goal that's highlighted is to identify and implement priority Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, improvements, And the two objectives that are highlighted are to develop and prioritize a list of accessibility improvement and ways to water sites and major conservation and recreational areas, and to identify new locations for adaptive mountain bike trails. Okay.
Just curious, it seems like everything you're showing us is a low priority. Are you just selecting low priorities, or why aren't we seeing any high, medium, and could you describe the criteria that were used to establish the priorities?
You want to speak to the criteria about the initial? I'll take it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So first of all, this is just a draft form, so these comments are very valuable tonight. Anything that you see as low priority that you disagree with, that's what we want to hear about. The next meeting with the Open Space Committee, they're going to be meeting in December. This is going to be one of the things that we're going to want to talk to them about to make sure this has been an iterative process, so we've been working along the way with them. We're going to want them to take a hard look at the priorities. To this point, they've really tried to make sure that we've gotten the action plan developed out. The kind of last phase will be this prioritization phase. So these will be subject to change based off of Open Space Committee discussion and based off of sentiment we hear from the public. I would note that these are just a kind of a random selection of example goals and objectives. In this category, we didn't highlight it tonight, but one high priority is evaluate the town's ADA self-evaluation and transition plan and identify priority accessibility improvements amongst the town's beaches, parks, playgrounds, municipal golf course, and recreation facilities. So I would encourage everybody to look at the action plan. These are just snippets of it, but they're by no means the whole thing.
Yes, yes, so these are just a couple of that we have highlighted. So there's many more that are in the action plan that might be high priorities. I do quickly want to mention how they're selected to be different priorities. So again, this is an iterative process. We're here to collect comments. Those can be changed if you feel strongly that they should be high priority items. But one of the ways we look at priority is looking at timeframes. So some actions, because the town will have to wait for funding to be approved, it will take longer. So some timeframes mean that because the town has to get funding and actually implement the project, it will take longer. So that pushes the actions to years that are not coming sooner than like in the next couple of years. It might be within the next 5 years or 8 years, depending on when the town secures funding. So for that reasons, the different actions can be allocated as different timeframes in terms of how the town pursues funding and what they're able to get to actually implement the actions. So sometimes projects also have like a pre-planning phase before they need a 1 year or a 2 year break while funding is secured. So all of those items are kind of reasonings why some actions might look like they're not as high priority, but it's based off of how the town can pursue fundings and actually get those actions implemented. Hi.
Don Erickson Taylor again. I see 12.1, evaluate the town's ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, which I believe was done in 21. And if we don't act on, you're required to do, and we paid $250,000, even though it was grant money. People may not know that's how much the town paid for that evaluation and that transition plan. Mm-hmm. So the way the town is moving on a lot of the ADA stuff, we would have to fork out more money if we'd need to update and reevaluate the plan if we don't act in a timely manner on that. Yep. And I think that the way you're presenting this, I know it's a draft, but it's very confusing to follow. Mm-hmm. The way you're skipping around, I've been trying to follow. So you're just picking random things to go up on the slide,
We're highlighting,
just to present.
We are highlighting a couple of actions from each of those categories. So from connectivity and accessibility, we've highlighted a couple of them, but there's several others that are in that document.
Okay. And I'm not clear as to why you're not presenting high priorities. That I didn't get the clarification on that. So you're presenting 2 low priorities on a slide. I don't. Can you clarify why you're just presenting the low priorities? I didn't understand your rationale when you tried to explain that.
So my rationale wasn't so much related to what we're presenting on the slide. It was more related to how low priorities are determined in the action plan, and that has to do with how the town might secure funding and wait for implementation. But Kyle can speak to why we have the slides on the.
Yeah, this wasn't really meant to be like these are the two most important ones. This is just to give you guys a flavor. Really, we encourage you guys to take a deep dive on your own time in the action plan. You know, we weren't anticipating everybody's going to have a chance to look through the whole thing by tonight or during the meeting tonight. So this is just to give you kind of a flavor and context to the plan so that when you have time to go look at it on your own, you can kind of understand where this all came from and how it's organized. This isn't meant to be like, these are the top two that we think. It was, again, just a...
Was that presented at the beginning?
I'm sorry?
Was that presented, that your approach, was that presented at the beginning? I missed the very beginning of this, so I didn't know if you folks presented that this was how you're going to go forward with the presentation tonight.
Yeah, we set the stage for how it was going to go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, no problem.
All right.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yep.
My name is Doug Payson, Barnstable Village. I serve on the Open Space Committee. One of the things I think that people need to realize is that with the reconfiguration of Main Street, South Street, and North Street, in that process and connecting that to the new multi-use path which is being built right now along Bursa's Way, that will go a long ways towards increasing ADA compliance. And we have a real focus on connecting. Because I live in Barnstable Village, our main use is the sidewalks. Most people where I live walk almost every day. We're about to fight the Cape Cod Commission because they would like to not build the sidewalks along Main Street in Barnstable as ADA compliant. So that's a heads up for people in the disability community. But we are really trying to connect all of the sidewalks and multi-use paths to the existing and potential playgrounds and parklands. And particularly, there's a possibility where they're doing the work right now out at Calmus Beach. That could certainly be enhanced as a park that could be accessible all day long. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the last category, and the goal that is highlighted on the screen is to promote public awareness of and support for open space protection and enhancement of recreational resources. And the two objectives highlighted for this goal are install new signage along roadways at walking trails to increase visibility and awareness of town's open spaces. And the second one is to develop an online reporting form accessible via QR code signage at parks and playgrounds townwide to allow residents to report maintenance, safety, or accessibility concerns directly to the town staff.
Is it right? Or is it for these slides? Yeah, I think you're good. Thank you.
No comments? All right.
Thank you,
so
Aksa.
much.
So I'll just go over the public comment period. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Tom Scott. This is kind of a non sequitur, but it just popped into my mind. We had the discussion, and several people pointed out high priority, low priority. Words have power. And if you use a word like priority and you put low next to it, it automatically cloaks it with, oh, we're never going to do that. So I would encourage you to think about other terms to use in your presentations rather than priority. I'm trying to think of things that might be appropriate, like, availability of funds and on a scale of 1 to 5, something other than, oh, that's low priority, because that's a killer.
Yeah.
That's a killer.
Yes, thank you for that. And I should have clarified that earlier. These terms come directly from the Massachusetts Open Space Workbook requirements. So we are required in the action plan to list a priority level and a time frame and response, like all the different columns that are in the action plan are structured that way because that's the requirement from the Open Space Workbook to get the plan approved. Thank you.
I would say point taken, and I think that's a topic that the Open Space Committee will be diving into fully at their next meeting. So in terms of public comment period, so we are in the open public comment period right now through next Wednesday. Comments can be submitted online through our project website, which I'll show you on the next slide. They can also be emailed to me, or you can call me. You can come into Town Hall. We also have copies of the draft plan at each library in the Barnstable Adult Community Center, as well as a hard copy of the public comment forms there as well. So we have a project webpage. If you go on the Planning and Development website, we have an Open Space and Recreation Plan Update project webpage where you can see the draft plan and you can submit your comments directly right on there. But again, whatever's most convenient for you, if you want to email, call, come in, whatever's the easiest, we're happy to obtain comment. And basically the process from here we will be compiling public comment that we'd be receiving at this session and just during this public comment period, and we'll be presenting it to the Open Space Committee at their next meeting in December.
Just to let everybody know, we do meet generally monthly, second Monday, 5:30. December 8th is our next meeting in the small room over here, so we look forward to continuing the process.
Right. Yep. Thank you, Lev. So the process from here we'll be talking to the Open Space Committee to consider any revisions to the draft. Eventually, we'll be presenting it to the Planning Board, the Recreation Commission, and the Conservation Commission for their vote of approval, and ultimately it'll be presented to the Town Council for their review and approval. But with that, we're happy to continue the discussion. Yeah, please. You just want to come up to the mic, just because it's recorded and people at home.
This is excellent. Okay, I've enjoyed listening to other people and what I've enjoyed listening to other people and what they're saying. Okay, I would like to see comments.
Yep.
When people are putting the comments in, I would like to be able to go to like Facebook kind of thing and look at and see that such and such said a comment, and then I can make some kind of comment maybe behind it or whatever. So that's
Sure.
what I would like.
Yeah, we have all of the comments from the we have all of the comments from the initial public comment period when we held our initial open house. We have those all on the Open Space Committee webpage, but we can make sure to also put that on the project webpage. It's a very good point. And we'll do the same for this public outreach session. Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Janet Milkman. I'm Executive Director of the Barnstable Land Trust. Thank you for this plan. It's really great. We only really get together to talk about open space as a community once every 8 years. So even though the Open Space Committee works really hard and the Community Preservation Committee works really hard, this is such an important conversation, and this is such an important plan. And it's important for a lot of reasons. Just to echo what Lindsay said, this is when we remind ourselves what the value of open space is for human health, for water quality, for climate resilience, for our economy. And the plan does a good job of noting how land protection is a good way to protect all of our resources, whether it's our sole source aquifer for drinking water or our bays and estuaries that are critical for our aquaculture and our blue economy. And it reminds us that our beautiful beaches and marshes and woodlands are the basis of our tourism economy and need to be protected, and how important access to nature is for human health. So we, Barnstable Land Trust, has been involved at a number of stages of this effort, and we have more comments to submit, specific ones, which we'll do. But I just wanted to stay sort of high level because I really think, I'm really glad to see so many people here tonight. Our community really values open space. We see it every time there's a survey. We saw it in your survey. We saw it in the Cape Cod Commission survey. We saw it in the local comprehensive plan survey, which was just done a couple years ago. Open space is always at the top of the value list, and Cape Codders have voted with their pocketbooks numerous times to support the protection of open space, and they continue to do so through the Community Preservation Act funding. But you wouldn't know it by the attention that we give to it in our town, and I say this in part for the elected officials in the room too. It's really important that this plan help us guide how we steward the open space that we have. And because our public open space is our best resource only when people know about it and have access to it, and when we maintain it for public use. And it's really important to plan for how we continue to preserve the important open spaces that are at risk for development. There's not that much land left, whether it's pristine woodlands or cranberry bogs or golf courses. We need to have a plan, and we need to have a way of implementing it. Again, to echo some of the people who've spoken about the years that we've been waiting to do some of these things that are supposedly required. Our community has demonstrated time and again that open space is a need, not a want. And it is not a burden to be addressed only when other services have been provided. It adds tax value, it saves tax dollars, it supports our economy in so many ways. And we know it at BLT, we live it every day. This year we're working on 5 land projects because people really care about protecting what's left. We have hundreds of people who volunteer with us every year. We have thousands of people who come to our programs. And this plan is an opportunity to guide the town to invest more in our open space, like we do in any other infrastructure, not treat it like something it's nice to have if we had the money. So, as I said, we have specific comments on the plan that we will submit in addition to the ones that we've already put in, and it's great. We've seen a lot of them incorporated, and we really appreciate that. We think the plan is good. It is only as good as its implementation, as other people have always said. So we'd love to see the Open Space Committee track it every year. We'd love to have a commitment from the town to invest in capacity to support better stewardship of our existing open space, and a commitment to protecting critical remaining open spaces, not just language on a page, but actual staff and money to help make it happen. And we are here ready to partner with the town in any way, whether it's taking care of properties or purchasing properties like we do now, right, putting conservation restrictions on properties, because protecting open space for current and future generations is one of the few things that we can do, maybe the only thing that lasts forever. So let's make sure we have a plan and invest in it in a way that our grandchildren will benefit from, because our future here is only as secure as we make it, and this plan can help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Some great comments.
Thank you, Janet. We are very blessed in Barnstable to have the Barnstable Land Trust here. And Janet Milkman and her team have been instrumental in identifying land and helping to support the protection of land. So we're very, very lucky. Thank you again. Thank you, Lindsay, for the work you do with the CPC. And once again, thank you to the Open Space Committee. Amazing. But I'm back to talk about Hyannis. Because if we look at page 22, the very top, it says, looking ahead, Barnstable faces the ongoing challenge of balancing development pressures with the protection of its natural resources, water quality, and community character. Okay? It talks about the quote-unquote demand for housing, and that places pressure on water resources, open space, and recreation lands. So we don't need to get into a discussion about housing. But I'm asking the Open Space Commission to dig down a little bit. When you see a piece of property that's available for open space or that is slated for development, rather than saying, oh, we need housing. Oh, yeah, it needs to be in Hyannis because that's where all the facilities are. What's happening to the groundwater underneath? What's happening to the creeks that feed into the estuaries, the ponds, and back through, in my case, Stewart's Creek and down into Nantucket Sound? So I'm asking you to when you hear about that, dig down a little bit more in terms of that particular area, because all of Cape Cod is a quote-unquote sensitive environmental area. And because we have a GIZ in Hyannis, I mean, it's so ludicrous when I mentioned Pleasant Hill Lane that it's only 5 houses. It's a dead-end street slated for development on acres of woodland that go down to a creek that feeds into eventually into Nantucket Sound. But if we overdevelop that, we're impacting the environmental area, and we're also overlooking that there really isn't much available on Cape Cod, and particularly in Hyannis, for open space. And we need to protect our water supply, and that is also a key. So recreation in these locations also should be carefully designed. So I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I really feel that at this point in time, because of the criticality of the small amount of open space on the Cape and the overdevelopment in a place like Hyannis, that we need your help. We need your help. We need you to really take a very careful look at what's going on in Hyannis and where there can be open space. I'm not talking pocket parks. You'll hear from Janet Milkman, you'll hear from the Riverview School in the upcoming months and years in terms of what will happen at 35 Scudder, and that will be absolutely amazing. But that's just one piece of land, and we need your help. So thank you, and I think that's it for me.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi. I'm Avery Revere. I just spent 3 years on the local comprehensive planning committee, and I'm a little bit here to comment on a comment, but I want to talk about the results of the local comprehensive planning committee, or one of the ones that was really important to me was the idea of master planning for certain parts of the town. One of them being the area behind BJ's, where, of course, is where all the housing goes. And to Janet's comment on elected officials, one of the takeaways, and I talked to my counselor, Gordon Starr, and any other counselors who might listen to me and say, where are you guys, how's your strategic plan going? Are you starting to implement some planning for behind BJ's? How's your strategic plan going in terms of open space? I mean, ultimately, to Janet's point, it's the elected officials that have a tremendous amount of power in making all of this happen. And so I know a bunch of you are here. I can easily look around. I look forward to you getting a strategic plan and really starting to hear that things are moving forward with both the local comprehensive plan and, of course, this plan as well.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Brian Hughes, Vice President of Save Twin Brooks. In the small amount of time I've lived here, I've not lived here my whole life, but I've heard lots of these great aspirational sayings, statements, and it seems to me that's what they end up being, is aspirational statements. In practice, I'm in Hyannis, and we can see development after development coming up when we're trying, which we finally were successful in saving Twin Brooks from overdevelopment. People would say housing, 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 and then what goes up are these very large developments with, the 10% mandated affordable and the rest of it's market rate. That's not what we need, and it's not open space. It takes over open space. And as I was thinking about coming up, I was just struck from a blast from the past. When I was growing up as a teenager in New Jersey, I listened to rock and roll on AM radio, and one of the advertising, long-time advertising skits on the radio had the tagline of "Money talks, nobody walks," and that's what I'm afraid we're still seeing. And despite your efforts, we will still see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Betty Lutke again. I wanted to tie together Avery's comment with Kim McGuire's comment. And I really want you guys, you didn't talk at all tonight about the kind of the preface, the intro to this plan. You just went right to these goals, which is a little bit odd in my opinion. I don't know if are you going to have another meeting where you're going to talk about comprehensively?
No, but that's a part of the draft plan. That's why we encourage
Okay.
people to
But
read
let's
it.
go back to pages 22 and 23, which when I read it, I got very angry, frankly, when I read it. And because the local comprehensive plan, we had a meeting at the high school. I don't know if you two were there. I know Jim Kupfer was there. And we talked about this master planning that Avery was referring to. But yet on pages 22 and 23 of this plan, I see absolutely no progress. It's like you did retrograde. You retreated and you went to the same old story. Even though also the town council, which has been referenced here, has had an ad hoc zoning committee, which is purposely trying to tear down the zoning that's represented on page 22. So I find this disappointing that we haven't learned from our local comprehensive planning process and that you're just relying on the same old situation and we haven't moved forward. So I would ask you to look at pages 22 and 23. On 23, you show that 80% of the town is pristine and wonderful and we're not going to touch it. And that's everything but Hyannis, basically. So please, would you take a look at that? Take a look at what the local comprehensive plan did, some of these master planning, and let's fold that in so we move forward with our planning. And to Lindsay's comment, I mean, I thought that was very bizarre that you read that this is to do funding, this plan. I mean, that really jumped out at me. This is all to get grants and stuff. I mean, it is true. That is the purpose of it. But I don't think we should say that.
I've never said this is all to get grant
No,
funding.
it reads that way. If you read it starting at the beginning, it reads that this is in order to get, and then when you said about priorities, they're all about funding. And I don't doubt that because money moves everything.
The funding sources is one of the requirements that the state makes us put in the chart.
And then another thing, page 33, I think, and you do mention Hyannis in here as having some issues, but you look at the open space, and the protected open space in Hyannis is quite small, 233 acres. Everybody else is much. But then you get down to the other open space, and my goodness, you put in the airport as open space for Hyannis at 534 acres. You put in the cemeteries for Hyannis at 21 acres. You put in the schools. It's on and on. I think there ought to be like a big asterisk on this. How is the airport open space for the residents of Hyannis? I mean, I guess it falls into the category and you have to list it, but there should be some giant asterisks in there that say that we have to list this for this reason, but we understand. We're not saying that this is, because if you read the chart, you say, oh my God, Hyannis is doing great. But if you delve into it, it's not doing great at all. So we didn't talk about the preface to the plan, but I'll make some comments in writing. But I wish we had to bring out some of this. And again, to speak, especially to what Avery said, there was a heck of a lot of work on that. Some things were carried forward, and it's like they were completely lost in the process.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
All right. Hello, my name is Steve Robichaud. I live in Barnstable Village. I serve on the Town of Barnstable Planning Board and CPC. I see some fellow CPC members here. I read the full document this afternoon, and I made 3 pages of comments. I'm not going to read everything, but just bear with me. I very much like the format of the document. We've got to make sure we're putting out materials that are digestible and easy to read. The cover photo, the table of contents, we've got photos, we've got graphs, we've got images. That makes it easy for everybody to kind of work through and makes it enjoyable to read. I'd encourage the use of more photos, especially on pages that are currently 100% text. There's so much natural beauty in the town, it's very easy to add more photos to add. Let's see, so section 5 I think is great because it acknowledges what we've accomplished to date. Over 15,000 acres of protected open space, recreation space, public land. That's amazing. So we always have to take stock of what we've done, and I think that's wonderful. Table 5.3, municipal owned properties. I just wonder out loud if it's best to present this alphabetically or if it should be sorted by category. So that was one comment I had. Table 5.5, protected private parcels. I'm not a huge fan of kind of how the first column appears. I would take the first column, and by the way, I'm going to email this to you. So I would take the first column and split it into 2 columns, and then I would add a column. So column A, property name, column B, property address, column C, parcel ID, column D, duration of easement, and column E, current use. So just to make it a little bit more digestible. Page 79, open space and park equity. This is a big one for me. This comes up a lot in our CPC meetings. It's mentioned a lot by CPC members. Access should be open to all, regardless of any and all factors. I mentioned this a little bit later in my comments as well. So now on to the action items. My comments are a little bit more specific about the action items. So goal number 1, townwide policy with defined criteria. I love this. I agree wholeheartedly. I like that it's at the top. As a CPC member, having defined criteria in mind when reviewing open space acquisition requests would be very valuable. My only recommendation is to move public access bullets to the top of that section. Again, the town should be absolutely prioritizing open space acquisitions that allow for equitable public access with no strings attached. I also am going to echo comments that have already been made, which is if a playground is at a school, it's not access to the public during school hours. And if a playground is at a beach, that's a pay-to-play situation during the summer where you must pay for a beach sticker to get there. So just a couple things to mention. I love the idea of a public database inventory of all sites with any deed restriction on them. I imagine a map tool where you could click on the various deed restrictions, affordable housing, conservation, recreation, et cetera. And when you click on one, all of those properties are highlighted and each one has its own color. I know this would be expensive and time consuming to do, but it would be a very valuable tool. Section 3.1, stewardship. I think we may want to consider adding language that encourages partnership with the business community. I can picture that these volunteer efforts likely incur cost, and these costs could potentially be covered by the business community. I envision something like adopt a trail or adopt a conservation area, something along those lines. This is not necessarily saying that a business would handle boots on the ground work, but could help with the cost associated with those boots on the ground volunteer efforts. This also ties into goal 4, maintenance of conservation areas. 5.2, I think we need to expand on the phrase upgrade golf course facilities. I think that's too vague. I think we need to be a little bit more specific what that refers to. I got a lot of comments on playgrounds, but I'm going to just kind of summarize it as CPC is a willing partner in the funding of building playgrounds, and I think we can find a path that accomplishes a lot in a short period of time. And I'm just going to leave it at that, but I'm going to continue the conversation. We're going to continue to talk about this at CPC meetings, and I think there's some really exciting things that we could pursue to that end. 6.5, parks and open space for Hyannis. I very much support this. More green space in Hyannis is needed. Development agreements should seek land donations, however small, for green space. This could be as simple as grass with some benches and trees. Garden clubs would jump at the opportunity to enhance these parks with gardens. Just ask my mother. Local businesses could sponsor the care of these areas. It does not have to burden DPW. Burdening DPW cannot be used as an excuse not to pursue that. A landscaping company could be hired to care for a park any size, and I guarantee that the business community would step up to foot that bill. I'm confident a partnership with the Hyannis Chamber could accomplish this. 6.7 dog park, 100%. It's got to be downtown. That's something that we need to improve the quality of life. Just a random thought, by the way, if the town identified vacant, neglected, derelict property that has zero prospect of being improved, the town should not be afraid to step up and take that property and turn it into green space, potentially deed restricted. And I think town council has to take the lead on that. Goal 10, town ways to water. Again, I just want to emphasize public access. I think that should be at the top. Part of this is asking ourselves if everyone in the town, regardless of any factor, has equal access to the water. I think there's a public conception that maybe those with the means to afford certain things have more access to water. Whether true or not, I think that perception exists, and we need to ask ourselves what we can do to overcome this. This is one of the primary elements that makes our town so special. So I, put a quote and adjusting the phrasing to say, pursuing new public access to water opportunities that are equitable and available to all with no cost or unreasonable limitations. And again, I know I'm not using the right language, but I'm just getting my thoughts out there. Access to a beach. I get that access to a beach should come with a cost. Like, I understand that. Beach stickers, that makes sense. I don't feel the same way about access to a walking trail, a park, a playground. There should be no unreasonable limitation or cost to access these types of sites. Goal 11, bikeways, pathways, trails. If there's a small sliver of private land that's blocking the connection of these pathways, does the town have any options to step in and somehow work with a private property owner to take that land? Offering some sort of compensation, a tax break, an incentive, something to work out a deal. There's a lot of opportunities out there to link up these pathways. I only got two more. 11.7, trailhead safety and management. I think this is a big hurdle. I think the big hurdle with that is going to be cost. There's a cost associated with that. And I think this is an ideal place to attempt to partner with the business community. The concept that may work, again, is a sponsor a site type of concept where we put a monetary value to the maintenance and care of a site, and then ask the business community to step up, sponsor that site, put those funds up annually, and then we can take care and look out for those sites. Last one, 13.1, and the trailhead was 11.7. 13.1, coordinating implementation. So I think this is the most difficult thing. We don't get together enough to talk about this. It's a huge challenge. At the beginning of this, you list out all of the groups involved. I even found my name in there, which was pretty cool. There's so many groups. How do you get them all together in the same room and talk about this? It's very, very difficult. So I'm going to throw a wild idea out there, which is an annual summit or workshop with all parties that are involved once a year, get everyone together in the same room. I understand that for many entities like CPC, like Planning Board, it would have to be a posted public meeting or it would violate open meeting requirements. But I do think that getting everyone together to talk about progress, goals, next step will create and sustain momentum. In 10 years, we should be able to look back collectively as a group and say, wow, look at what we've accomplished. It's not going to happen if we don't get everyone together and keep the momentum going. So you could do it at the high school gym. You could do it at the high school performing arts center. You could have it as an official public hearing for each entity. And you could have every group that's involved present. What have they accomplished? What are their goals? What are their next steps? Have public comment, of course, have guest speakers. It's just such a unique topic because it involves so many groups. And thank you all for your work on this. Great job.
Thank you. Great comments. Come on, Megan.
Boy, what Steve said was just amazing. So I just want to say there are a number of people here from nonprofit organizations. So I mentioned the Barnstable Land Trust. I mentioned Save Twin Brooks. Your civic associations, Greater Hyannis Civic Association, Centerville Civic Association. So please engage with your civic associations, engage with the nonprofits that have similar goals to what you folks are doing. Get us involved. We'll help advertise. We put this notice out on the Save Twin Brooks
Much
website,
appreciated.
at the Greater Hyannis Civic Association website, and I talked to some other civic association leaders in other communities. Use us. We want to partner with you. We're all in this together to make this a wonderful place to live. So just add that on. But I think Steve covered a lot of great areas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, great comment.
Hi. We're going to be submitting comments, so this is just very brief. Kelly Grant from Barnstable Land Trust. Just a couple of suggestions. Within the action plan, there's a column for responsible party, and sometimes there are a lot of responsible parties. And I thought it might be helpful to actually identify a leader within that group of people so that there is one entity that is pushing that forward.
Yep.
And I know you mentioned like the town council is the main driver, but there is also usually a department or a committee within the town. So that might be helpful just to kind of keep that momentum. And then the other was kind of a curiosity around the process, because my understanding of the open space plan update is that you are inventorying your properties and priority lists as part of that process. So I was kind of surprised to see creating those inventories and priority lists as action items in the plan. So, yeah, just if you have any response to that.
Actually, do you want to speak to the yeah?
So just related to some of the action items within the action plan relate to creating inventories of parcels, I think, and also of priorities. Some related to ADA accessibility, but some others as well. And I thought that some of those items were actually a part of the open space plan update.
Yes.
So I was surprised to see them as actions beyond the planning period.
Yeah, that is a good question. So that's because the inventory keeps changing. So as if the Barnstable Land Trust acquires another parcel, then they would need to update that in the inventory. So it's more of continuation of the inventory updates. So these plans are written every 10 years. So within the next 10 years, when the new plan is written, it would be helpful to update that inventory, whether that's every year or every month or whenever the open space committee or entities are able to get together to either add on to that inventory of new parcels that are being acquired or new playgrounds that are being built, to update that more frequently. Does that address the question?
So I guess just to clarify, because, and maybe this is this confusion around low and high priority, but like the inventory, I think there was an action item that's considered a low priority to be done in 8 to 10 years. But I would have thought that that list would now be current because we've just gone through an update. There should be a complete list of every parcel in town, its level of protection, its, so, you know, expecting we would now have that list.
Yes.
Which would then be updated, obviously keeping a running update through the years, but
Correct.
then another major update when the plan is updated again.
Yes. So I'm remembering exactly what actions you're saying. I think the time frame for that is 8 to 10 years, because by then you would have to have a more updated inventory for the open space update that would be required 10 years from now.
Okay,
So
so we can almost like cross that one off and say, yay, we've done that already.
Well, I think that what that action is saying is that you have to keep an inventory. Maybe we can clarify that action to say that it should be continuously updated in intervals leading up to the 8 to 10 year plan. That way there's a more running list of any inventories that are either being acquired or built. And that way in 10 years when there's another update, that there's a more current list that the town has versus pulling that together from scratch.
Okay, yeah, and I think that aligns with how the terminology maybe used to be, where you had ongoing tasks that were continually doing some of these things rather than just throughout
So I think that could definitely be rephrased to continue updating open space and recreational plans, so there's a more updated inventory leading up to the next update, which will be in 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So like, for example, on the one goal, that's create a public database for properties with conservation restrictions. That's meant to be like something that lives on the website that people will be able to access easily. So that's going to require us to maintain it and continue to update it and yeah. So that's kind of, if that, yeah. Here's you. Go ahead.
I just, there was a couple of points I just wanted to clarify. There was one related to, thank you, by the way, for all the comments. These are great. One was related to one of the tables that would be helpful to restructure. I think those are really great comments. We follow the guidelines that are in the Massachusetts workbook that are required to approve the plan. So the structure somewhat we're limited to as we're provided guidelines from the state. And I just wanted to make a comment about that. But otherwise, thank you so much.
Hi, my name is John Richmond. I live in Hyannis. I just want to say thank you. This represents a lot of work, and I think we need to bear in mind that this is an aspirational document. This hasn't even touched the sausage machine yet, okay? And my takeaway from your priorities is not so much priorities as likelihoods. Okay, that I look at these things and I feel that you say, well, the likelihood that this is going to be funded is kind of low. We'd like to see it. We don't know where the money's going to come from. We hope you guys will do it. And the only other thing I would like to say is when we talk about open space, we tend to be thinking in terms of large open spaces. And I would ask you to think of smaller spaces, particularly in Hyannis. It's now determined that Barnstable Road and Main Street are going to be urban corridors. And a pocket park at some place like 720 Main Street might not be a bad idea. Yep. And so I'd ask you to think smaller, yep, particularly as regards the traditional village of Hyannis. And thank you again.
Thank you. Great comments. Anybody else with any comments or questions? This certainly isn't your last bite of the apple. We have another week of the public comment period. I encourage you to go on the website, take a look at the plan at your convenience, and feel free to offer any written comments that will be presented to the Open Space Committee. Mr. Counsel.
Thank you. I did have one notion here that I also presented at the comprehensive plan group, is to do an inventory. We're talking about the inventory of existing. We also need an inventory of privately held lands and other sites and a prioritization of that, because that would really help us guide this process forward, particularly in Hyannis if we're looking at properties that might be undeveloped or changed in some way. So that type of build-out analysis, if you will, could really direct us to the connecting properties we hear so much about, the ones that may be really sensitive wildlife habitats that should be prioritized. So I didn't get it through with the comprehensive plan, but I think this could be something that is done in year one, and it would take funding, and I think the CPC would be able to fund that outlook so that we could then look back and see what's available, where the potential is, and then move some of these other inventory items forward. So just a thought.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good comment. Anybody else? If not, we'll conclude the meeting, but I'll hang around after if anybody wants to, give me any comments in person after this. But thank you, everybody, for coming. This was some very valuable feedback. Really appreciate everybody's participation. Have a great evening.